guys. Welcome back to me and all the crazy stuff I have to say, namely about Frost DK and PvP in World of Warcraft. A new patch came out, 8.3. It introduced some things. Changed nothing about my class at all, but it changed some other important stuff. Let's talk about it. So, Frost DK as a whole got no class changes at all, which means all the basic information, traits, itemization, talents, PvP talents, rotational abilities, setups for your burst rotation, comps, all of this good stuff can be found in the video in the description below. That is all still relevant. Please don't. Just go watch it, please. It's still relevant information. I can't talk about all that again. It's been 2 hours. You guys are going to lose your mind. I have 3 hours of videos of that. We can't do it again. So that's all still relevant. I won't re-record it for you. It's all good. It's going to be my first video where we actually talk about some news and some more specific stuff. Like, I've got 2 really cool builds for you that I'm actually going to give you the whole build for. And really good setups that I think I can give you precise information on that you can just copy and use, and it's going to be very powerful. So we're going to go with that for this video. And all of the general information, please, video in the description below. That's that. There's my introduction, short and sweet. So what we're going to do then is we're going to go over all the changes in 8.3, what that does for Frost DK as a whole, and some of the crazy builds that I've come up with as a result of this new bizarre system that they implemented into the game. And I'm going to give you the exact things you need to look out for and the exact essences and items to get, and then you can do it too. There's no vagueness here. You're going to be able to do the whole thing. So let's do this. First, as a brief note, like I said, traits, itemization didn't change. You're looking for Icy Sits, you're looking for Frozen Tempests, you're looking for Frost Whelps. This is not the most important part of this build. So find those things. Again, link in the description below to what makes a good trait. Those are not the important part. It's later in the video. The essences, the corruptions, we'll talk about it. Itemization still. Mastery is better than Verse, is better than Crit, is better than Haste, and Mastery is just far better than the other 3. Verse is up there. Mastery is insane right now. It's absurd. So that stays the same. But what we've got some changes on are essences. So we've got 3 new essences. We've got some nerfs and buffs to essences, and we've got a little bit of a change of the playstyle of the class. So I will go over that right now. What I have created in lieu of all these changes is 2 separate essence builds that also make totally separate itemization builds, which you can then copy directly and use that playstyle, whichever one you like the better. Here are the 2 builds. 1, AoE burst setup build. This is very important to get your grip sweep combo off. You can't miss it. You've got to get the other team's trinkets. You've got to use your blind correctly. You've got to make sure you get the AoE stun, get their trinket, use all of your CDs, slow them in the Fist of Fury, slow them in the Chaos Nova afterwards with the Chill Streak. You've got to get this setup going. But this is some of the highest, most ridiculous AoE bursts in the game, and this is how we do it. We run Blood of the Enemy, Major, Breath of the Dying, Minor, Conflict and Strife, Minor, Purification Protocol, Minor, when that slot's active, right? So, there, put it in there, in spirit. That build uses the most powerful AoE tool in the game, which is Blood of the Enemy. And again, we know how that works, right? We empower Pillar, Remorseless. We get the proc. We start building up the Pillar. Then after a few obliterates, we pop Chill Streak, Blood of the Enemy, and oh no, it's critting for 106,000. And I'm not even Mastery Spec right now. I'm still Verse from last season. So that's a big number, right? And that's the setup there. So we know how that works. With the addition of Purification Protocol's buffs, this thing procs off of your damage on Chill Streak bounces, on Remorseless Winter Ticks, on Howling Blast presses, on Frost Fever procs, this thing is going to proc as well. And so is Breath of the Dying, which we'll talk about in a second. This combination, while you're using Blood of the Enemy, makes them all crit, and their crit damage will be higher. So you have this absurd go that will kill anything if they don't have trinkets. So that is my AoE burst build. You have to use those exact essences to make it as good as possible. You can use other ones, but it won't be as good, I'm sure. What you're doing to min-max with that, and we'll look at corruptions later, but you're getting full mastery, and you are running Blinding Sleet over Asphyx. We talked a little bit about this in the other video. You need to have watched that video to kind of stay with me on the pace here. But yeah, you're playing Blinding Sleet instead of Asphyx because you're gripping, you're blinding, you're setting up with your global cooldowns, you're throwing that chill streak out. Then right as soon as that breaks, he's using the leg sweep, and then Blood of the Enemy and everything dies if they don't have Trinket. It's completely nuts. Now let's look at one more thing before we talk more in depth about this stuff. The other build that I could recommend on good conscience is a more survivability proc-based build, in which you use Conflict and Strife Major over Blood of the Enemy, right? So I can't pop that in right now, but we're just going to assume I did it. Using Conflict and Strife Major, then you're using Breath of the Dying Minor, Purification Minor, and Crucible Minor, right? So what do you see about this? Well, there's a lot of procs. You have Breath of the Dying proccing on damage, you have Crucible proccing on damage, you have Purification Protocol on damage. So you rot them, right? You've got all of this verse from Conflict and Strife Major. You have all of these proc damaging abilities, so you're rotting them. You heal for a lot, you're more tanky with Conflict. Not only that, you can now run Necrotic Aura, because Conflict and Strife gives you chill streak, so you can run like Heartstop Necro, and the Necro buffs all the damage of Breath of the Dying, Crucible, and Purification Protocol. So all of a sudden you have this build that's really rot heavy. That, in addition to Frost Fever, and all of a sudden you're just always applying pressure. Your sustained damage is off the charts. If you're in dampening, you're winning dampening. And that is an extremely powerful build for that playstyle. With that build, I recommend going full verse. So that is the change. There's a big essence change and a big stat itemization change. I would gem everything and enchant everything verse. All of these little proc things aren't going to scale with your mastery, and they're going to make up a lot of your damage. So what you would want to see then is versatility as it buffs them and makes you more tanky to get to dampening easily. So that is another entire setup. So write those down, baby, because those are exact essences I would use. I would not use anything else. So before you ask, no, Lucid Dreams is not good with that. No, Focusing Iris is not good. No, you wouldn't sub anything out for Life Force. No, Vision of Perfection isn't good now that it's been buffed. There's nothing else that I would recommend for those slots. Lucid Dreams is not useful enough. You don't need the Rune Generation. World Vein Resonance, wow, it's stats. It's useful sustained damage, but it's not, because you have to have other people running it, and it's not even that impactful anyway, and proc damage is more valuable, especially in dampening when you just have Frost Fever and you're lining and they're just still taking damage. Just trust me on that. Those are the 4 essences I would run, given it a lot of thought. So as a brief once-over all the changes and additions to the game, we had Condensed Life Force see a nerf. We never ran it anyway as Frost. It was impactful for other specs, but not for ours. We don't run that anyway. Purification Protocol saw a buff. I don't think the major outweighs Blood of the Enemy, but the minor, we saw it in both builds. That is very, very powerful. Unbound Force saw a buff. We will never touch it. Breath of the Dying got added into the game. The minor is absolutely phenomenal, and you need the corruption resistance. This is a guaranteed always pick in every situation. You must run it. Spark is not. I don't think I have to tell you guys that's not useful for us. Vision got buffed, but we don't need on-proc Rune Generation. That's the last thing I would ever want as a Frost DK. So worthless. Formless Void, pretty interesting, but the essence combinations that I linked are so much more valuable than anything this could do. I mean, so much more. So don't get fooled by this. Maybe some classes will use it, but I don't think we will. I'm sure not going to be. And that's essences. So I generally don't do that. I kind of just talk about each one and say you could use this in this situation. Those are the 2 builds I would recommend probably for the rest of the expansion. It's one combination of those two things. If you need a once over one more time, write it down. AoE burst build. Blood of the enemy, breath of the dying, conflict and strife, purification protocol. Sustained rot build. Conflict and strife, breath of the dying, crucible of flame, purification protocol. The first one uses mastery, second one uses verse. Okay, we're done. We're done. So, moment of truth, right? Corruptions. Shit's crazy, man. There's a lot going on with this. They had a lot of corruptions added to the game. Some increase stats. Some give you stat procs. Some just do damage. All of them increase your corruption, which is kind of bad because it kills you. Let's talk about that a little bit. Okay. So, corruption itself. It starts ramping up. It's very oppressive. The one that hits you, you can kite it. But in PvP, I don't think I have to tell you that the situations will occur in which you cannot move away from the thing. Because you're in a root, or a kidney, or a polymorph. And you're full health, but it still sucks to just lose all of it to that thing. But a root, or a kidney, or Chaos Nova, or Leg Sweep, or Blind, or one of the 6 non-DR Destro things. I mean, God, how many times would you die to that thing chasing after you when you're in a mortal coil, man? So unfortunately, I would probably stay with the recommendation that you can't reach 40. You can't even reach it. You cannot get to that 40 threshold that adds that thing to the game. There is Coil, Infernal Stun, Shadow Fury, and just Lock's Toolkit. That would all just ruin you. So what about Windwalker Lock with Sweep and Roots, and Mage Lock with Roots and fucking Roots, man. And, Leg Sweeps and Blinding Sleets and Chaos Novas. You cannot get to 40. Even as Frosty K, which is so tanky, if you're taking smashes of 250,000 damage midway through the game, you're just throwing your healer behind, man. I mean, if we still have a dampening meta, or if our meta is so bursty that they can swap to people, you're making yourself a good swap target. It's difficult to work with. I don't think there's going to be a time where we go over or reach 40 corruption. So I know everybody was going to be asking that question. Well, how much corruption can I use? At the current state of the game, I would never reach 40. Except in one fringe situation that I'll be explaining in a second. So, let's talk about the corruptions themselves so I can get to that information, because this is where it gets funny. Okay. So let's see. I have some corruptions here that I can show you as good examples. We've all heard about them probably. If you're watching this video, you're probably a little bit more in tune with what's been going on recently. We've got the Echoing Voids. We've got the Mind Flay. We've got the... Oh, I have this, don't I? It's a small one. The Twilight Devastation. We've got the Gushing Wound. Okay. Then we've got the on-proc stat ones. I'm not sure if I have one. We have the Versatility from all sources, or stat from all sources ones, and those are all of them, right? Stat proc from all sources does damage. 3 categories. So what can I say about those things? Well, obviously Echoing Void was ludicrously overpowered. They had to nerf it. Still probably good. I mean, 50% less than 30% of my damage is 15% of my damage. Pretty absurd. Twilight Devastation got a nerf and an internal cooldown. It was not really a high percent of your damage, but when it procced, it was insane. So now it's not nearly as good because it's not quite as insane and it doesn't proc a lot. So it's going to be a low percentage of your damage. Maybe late in the patch and the end of the expansion, when everybody has a ton of health, you can still one-shot somebody or execute somebody with the Twilight Devastation proc. Not sure I would recommend that yet. Gushing Wound hasn't gotten nerfed and still equates to a fair amount of your damage. And the Mind Flay one got nerfed in all aspects, both PvE and PvP, to only do 1% of the health's target's health and damage rather than 20 or some shit, some crazy thing like that. So out of the damage proccing ones, I think Echoing Void still has some merit. I think maybe the Mind Flay, nah, because they can get killed. I don't think that's very good. Gushing Wound is very powerful and hasn't been nerfed, so that's a thing. But actually, none of those is what I'm going to recommend. And it's not the stat proc corruption either. I would actually recommend you playing this game for the rest of your life, every day, and farming piece after piece after piece until you have 4, exactly 4, of the increased blank stat from all sources. And which blank stat do you want that to be? Well, you want it to be Mastery, or Verse if you're running that other build. You've got 2 options, right? But you need them to be the exact same one. So if you're running my AoE Cleave Burst Essence setup, you want it to be 4 Mastery. And if you're running the Rot, Survive, Proc build with Essences, you want it to be Verse. When you have 4 of these, it increases your versatility from all sources by 48%. By 48%. All sources. So what are some sources of versatility that you can use to manipulate the system a little bit? Well, there's the PvP trinkets with sockets that just equate to an easy 500. You can also get the on-use medallion with a huge amount of verse. Of course, you have your stats, your sockets, your enchants. You have On My Way, the trait. You have Elemental Whirl, the trait. You have Conflict and Strife, Major, and all the versatility that gives you in a stun. You have Jess's Howler, and I think that would probably do it. You also have, ironically, if you're an idiot, Vision of Perfection Minor, but I don't think we're going to go with that just for 100 verse. But you're starting to see where I'm getting at, right? If you find every source of versatility in the game, with Conflict Major, and maybe an On My Way trait, and 2 Elemental Whirls, and verse enchants and verse gems, and 48% more verse, you're probably going to be rocking maybe close to 50% verse when Conflict of Strife is all the way procced up. And any other procs are going. And it's late in the patch when you have your crafted gear and your crafted ring. That is 50% damage to all your essences, 50% damage to all of your abilities, 50% chance or damage to all of your random procs, 50% increase to all of your Death Strike heals, 50% increase to all the passive heals that are in the game right now, and a 25% wall, which is doubled in a stun. See where I'm going with this? It's pretty good. If we pop that over to Mastery, and I don't know, we get triple Blood Siphon, Mastery on every piece with Mastery Sockets and Mastery Gems. Maybe we get that Trinket that gives Mastery on use that I forget the name of. I might go to Blood Mallet right now and take a look at it. Frost. It is called Vial of the Animated Blood. And it gives you a significant amount of Mastery on use. And then we have 48% more Mastery. Well, then I could probably get on the use trinket 200% Mastery and press that Chill Streak Blood of the Enemy combo that I was talking about before. And that would hit 3 times harder than if I had no Mastery at all. And with no Mastery at all, I think it hits for 50k. So I could press Chill Streak, do over 1 million damage. And now the secret's out. There is no situation where I would recommend anything other than what I've given in this video. I think it's going to be with proper execution. So that means not being like, oh, I have one of these pieces, it doesn't even seem that good. We're talking 48% from all sources. We're talking every piece has Mastery on it, with your sockets and your enchants and your Blood Siphon and your exact essence combination that I gave before, with the grip, sweep, Chill Streak Blood of the Enemy on targets without trinket. I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot of clips before this all gets nerfed. I don't know. Are they going to nerf stats? What are they going to do? I don't know, dude. But that is the ultimate, penultimate secret. I've been teasing this on the DK Discord for a little while. I gave them some hints to help figure it out. The hints were actually related to Unholy, which has this setup even more insane. Completely off the wall, which is going to be in my Unholy video. That'll probably get released very similar to the time this video is released. Unholy has some really interesting interactions that is just makes it absolutely crazy. But that is the secret that I think everybody's going to need to grind for now in the next 2 weeks. And whoever gets it first wins. So get grinding, boys, because that's the secret. I don't think there will be any more ridiculous source of damage or survivability / proc damage in the game than either of those builds. Again, they're both separate builds that you could go down. If this was all confusing, that's fine. Watch the video again, because that is all, I think, the best way I can describe that. There's 2 separate builds, each with their own unique paths that you need to go down. There you go. So that is everything. I would ignore Mind Flay Corruptions from now. I don't have anything else, but again, this is what we're grinding to. I'm not saying I just have it now and, oh, I'm already done. My Unholy DK actually is over on Alliance, though. Just about. So we'll do that in the other video. But that's it. That's the whole setup. We now need to all look for those pieces. It's going to be crazy. There's nothing else really to talk about with Corruptions. I don't think after the nerfed Echoing Void it's quite as impactful to outweigh this absurd setup. There's no way Gushing Wound does. Twilight Devastation is funny. Like I said, late patch. Not really sure that matters. Mind Flay just dies. There's no way it outweighs 200k Chill Streak ticks. I mean, this is it, boys. So prepare for an entire season of trying to get these things so you can do obscene things. That's all what's new in 8.3. I think it's going to be fun, ? And certainly interesting. I hope that helped you guys get a feel for what you want to do in 8.3. What you're going to be grinding for, which essences you're going to be looking for. Again, everything else is the same for strats, for comps. DH DK is good. Windwalker DK is good. Guardian Frost DK might still be good. Those are the things you're going to look for. Do the grip sweep combos, get the blood of the enemy chill streaks, and see you out there. Good luck.